All right, welcome everyone. We are Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for podcast number 73.
The Twitch VOD.
Yes. Enjoy, guys. All right.
Welcome, everyone.
Hello, hello.
We're here to talk about D&D, storytelling.
Oh. Yeah. It's funny because, like, you have me, the noob, here in my not D&D garb, and then we have the absolute Chad here with... with this amazing Critical Role scarf
that's right.
here.
One of a kind. Yeah, this is absolutely unique.
Oh yes, oh yes. Look, you look amazing. No.
Thank you.
If you're wondering why we're wearing hats, it's freaking cold.
It is very cold.
Star Platinum, Snowmageddon is real, y'all.
Cats and dogs living together. It's madness. Yeah.
Mass hysteria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Like it's still snowing outside is the thing.
It's still snowing. Yeah. I think there's been like 18 inches of snowfall so far. Yeah, and it's still like going.
That. Yep.
Yeah.
Like we'll be lucky if we get 2 inches of snow like the entire winter, you know. But usually. Yeah. But now it's like this time alone, it's it's ridiculous. But hey, we don't have an office to go to, so you know.
In fact, sometimes I wish we did, but. But yeah, hey, Trashocon with the Twitch Prime resub for the 3rd month. Hello, guys. Hello. Hello there, General Kenobi. Hey, Raise Rocker. Just wanted to ask if there are any news regarding Genlock reactions. Can't wait to hear your opinion on this amazing show. We will not be reacting to it right now. If someone, is like really like emphatic on us reacting to it and stuff, we might revisit it in the future and start from the beginning and stuff like that. But there was a lot of confusion on my end with regarding whether or not Rooster Teeth was even going to allow reactions, and now that I know that they are, my good friend Arnold, who told me all about that and stuff, it's totally fine.
Yeah,
we're just not doing it there because I was saving the seasonal slot for something else, and that is what the Meat is God faction, which just won our Discord events, is getting a special series, which we'll get some news about that. Is there going to be any major Critical Role spoilers this stream? No.
Yeah,
don't worry.
You're only on Campaign 2, Episode 10. All right.
Awesome.
Very good to know.
That's very cool,
So
Chad
be nice, everybody. Just because I'm wearing a Critical Role scarf and we're talking about D&D does not mean...
Gooey. Yeah. With the 100 bits. Thank you so much.
That's
hat, scarf, and short sleeves. Not like this. Well, the thing is that, like the short sleeves are almost what we're limited to because we either go short sleeves because we don't really have long sleeve shirts or we have to go like full on coat, sweaters, blankets and everything, which would be fun.
It would be fun.
But we haven't lost power yet, thankfully.
Right, like the Dio, you were expecting a Christmas sweater, but it was Dio. And that's not even a Christmas sweater. It's like, it's like a thick long sleeve shirt. Yeah. That's basically the only long sleeve shirt I own that isn't like a button up. So, yeah.
What's up, Roman? He said, what's up, my dudes? I woke up and I live in Prescott, Arizona, and just randomly got 5 inches of snow this morning. Yep.
Exactly, yeah.
We've been getting about 12 over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, like...
It's nuts.
The memes about the Pacific Northwest and how we handle snow are hilarious and fairly accurate. So, yeah.
You know what's weird, y'all? There's no D&D tag on Twitch. I was looking forever for, like, some kind of tag that
to avoid porn, because, people get the wrong idea so easily.
Alrighty then. Yep. So first up, before we get into the podcast here real quick, we're going to be shouting out one of our VIP patrons that recently joined, Chepe or Cheap on the Discord. I think this is a meme on the Pepe Frog, but thank you so much for your support. Appreciate it a lot. I'm glad to have you on the Discord. Hope you're there for the VIP calls and VIP movie watch-alongs.
Is coming up.
So that'll be pretty cool. So D&D, or more specifically tabletop RPGs. What, Jacob?
Okay, so, Cychronia. Hey, y'all, guess who just watched a silent voice for the first time with his mother this past week? Victory for Jacob!
Oh my god! Well done, Cychronia!
Well done.
Yes.
I hope you drank a lot of water afterwards, because that'll dehydrate you,
Refill the reservoir.
And good job getting your mom to watch it, too. That's awesome. Yeah, it's such a great place to start with D&D.
Shy, the moderator. I've never played D&D in my life. I can follow the stats terminology pretty easily. That's pretty cool. Way
to go.
One of the things that we're going to be talking about here is how D&D is kind of the catch-all term for tabletop RPGs. And Jacob and I have played a couple different systems of tabletop RPGs.
Yes, and we started on Star Wars.
We started on Star Wars way back when. Back when they basically ripped off, what was it, 3.5?
Oh no, this was way past even that. Because, okay, history time.
Yeah.
D&D was basically the one that started it, right? And once it hit 3.5, that's when it really took off and a bunch of things started copying it. Knights of the Republic basically just stole it for the game system, and it worked really well. Pathfinder is basically just that, but a bit more like rules crunchy. And then there was the Star Wars system that did it with D6s back in the day, but then the core came out, and then revised core, and that was all basically just 3.5, and then Saga Edition came out after that, which was like a more simplified version of 3.5, and there was a lot of problems with that. It was a lot of fun, and it was how we got into it.
Yeah, and that's how we got into tabletop RPGs in general.
Yep.
And the cool thing that we both found out was we both liked very different things about tabletop RPGs, but more specifically, the actual experience of it enhanced, and I would say almost like took us into the stratosphere with regards to our passion of storytelling, because there's very specific things that tabletop RPGs and D&D, especially with the fantasies kind of stuff in there,
too,
really helps. I would say for those of you that are passionate about creating stories, and not only doing that, but creating characters in stories.
Well, yeah, because like when we first discovered Saga Edition, Star Wars, tabletop RPGs, right? We didn't know about them really. We didn't really know that they existed or anything like that.
In fact, should we tell this story?
Well, okay. Very conservative family where the idea of role-playing was of the devil.
Well, but we didn't even need to go into that. We really liked RPGs back in the day. And we understood why those were fun. So we took
make choices.
Right. We took a Star Wars miniatures board game.
Yep.
A collectible Star Wars miniatures board game.
Yeah.
And turned it into a Star Wars tabletop RPG without even knowing what tabletop RPGs
because
were.
We were obsessed with the idea of like, okay, all these characters is great, but what if we could make like OCs? And we didn't even know what OCs were at the time, right? No. But we're like, what if you could make your own character? So we tried to make a system to balance it so that you could make your own Star Wars miniature unique character and have them play in the rest of all the canonized miniatures and have it still be balanced, right?
And we had to design an XP system based on like specific powers and abilities that you would add to your custom characters without snowballing and getting too overpowered too quickly. And it sucked, but it was still so much fun.
Right, and we tried for a long time, and we actually got some pretty good stuff out of it. And we did the role-playing thing with those before we knew about tabletop role-playing games. And then you were at, like Uncle's Games or Genesis Games and Gizmos or something, and they had like an extra copy of the Saga rulebook, and I think they just like gave it to you, right? Because they were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, you're gonna love it. And then we were like, this is what we've been like searching for this whole time.
Yeah, because they just saw me sitting there reading it. Yeah. And they were like, do you want this? And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And they just bought it for me. And it was just like, oh, well, that's really cool. Because I was probably 15, maybe 14.
Oh, I think maybe, probably like 14 or something. Yeah.
So you get this kid coming into a game store, right? And I've come to this game store a lot to get like, basic board games now. I kind of laugh at it, but like Settlers of Catan, you know.
Well, or more Star Wars miniatures.
Or more Star Wars miniatures,
that
was
the big thing. Like, man,
those things
like crazy.
I just emptied my bank account every time I could.
Yep.
But those few years ended up basically shaping the idea of where stories could be created for not only for yourself, but for other people in a game format, which made, I'd say, the creation of the storytelling stuff more entertaining because you got this immediate feedback from the players that was involved there. So I was basically like destined to be interested in DMing, GMing, and all that from like the beginning.
Well, and the thing is that what we were constantly like sort of not complaining about, but like wishing there was something better, was that in games there was always a linear track that you basically followed. And even if they did a good job of adding like options, you know,
like Skyrim.
Yeah, or like back in the day, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, you know. You could have that choice of whether you go light or dark side at the end, but that was it. It was a binary choice. It's like, well, what if you wanted to do something else? What if you wanted to, spoilers, kill Rosh, but then still be light side? Like, you know, like turn back, you know, or something like that. But you couldn't do that. So then things like this come in and it's like, okay, awesome. This is fantastic. Like, this is what we've been looking for. Right. And then we got into it and like we didn't know what we were doing at all.
No, we had no idea what we were doing. But I just say one of the coolest things about kind of our experience overall with D&D and tabletop RPGs was that first part where you're consuming all these I would say forms and rules and limitations and I would say tools by which you can express it and kind of know where to funnel your energy. Really gave us I say tracks to run on so that we knew, oh, okay, we're not alone in this. There are other people that have done this and they've kind of helped streamline the whole process for it. And the game is just a means by which you have fun. But the actual fun, like before the game even comes into play, is actually playing with the systems, having like, fun, like expressing your specific character you want to do, your fantasy, if you will.
If you aren't familiar with tabletop RPGs, it's basically taking the concept of like when you're playing make-believe as kids and it's like, I want to be Iron Man, I want to be Superman, and it's like, oh, pew pew, I got you, or no, you didn't because this, right?
I used cover,
right? Exactly. It's putting structure onto that sort of thing, so you can still run around and have that make-believe world and stuff,
right?
And be Iron Man or whoever you want to be, and have it make sense, have there be internal consistencies. So if you haven't tried it out, I highly recommend it because it can be amazing. I saw a message in the chat earlier of like finding groups that can be tough, but you can start with kind of anybody, like, because the group can be a big deal, because different groups have different experiences, so you want to be playing with people you enjoy playing with. But if you say like get your siblings or your best friend or someone and be like, hey, let's try this new thing out, that can be some of the best, because then you're learning together. Like, if you wouldn't want to be playing with somebody that is, say, like taking it hyper seriously when you're just getting into it, right?
That's Yes. I just saw this message. I have to bring it up. Yu-Gi-Oh! 3D Master says, I know some dudes who made a D&D based around JoJo's where you play as members of the Speedwagon Foundation.
That is incredible.
That is so incredible. Cool. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, I totally did the kiddie training wheels equivalent of D&D since I was the kid. Some of it was just a verbal choose your own adventure with my cousin. Others were drawing fantasy maps and Mario levels with a classmate. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, well, dang, Caleb, that's right. Do you remember when we did just straight verbal choose your own adventure with like in the backyard and stuff, and we made up superpowers that we had and whatnot? And, Yep.
Chief Dan George saying, I'm also from a very conservative family, but I guess I was lucky that my parents saw the potential for teaching math and statistics through RPGs. Oh, that's brilliant.
You had amazing parents.
You had some genius parents.
Because,
it
really does. Like, because when we first got it, Caleb, you were like 14, right? So I was 10.
Yep.
And he comes back with this book that he's reading, and because it's like the older brother is interested in this new thing, it's like, oh, what's that
right
and he tells me about it. He's like, but this is really complicated, I don't know if you'd understand it. And suddenly it's like, I see, challenge accepted. And I didn't know it at all, but
it was in some ways, we looked at it like Risk. We looked at it like what was the other game we
Axis
played?
And Allies?
Axis and Allies. Yeah, that was probably the most complicated board game we had at the time.
Yeah, we were 6 years old.
Oh yeah. yeah. You were 6 years old. Jacob here reading Lord of the Rings by age 8 and and 9 and stuff. And
because one of the things that's awesome is that this guy, because we would have to keep ourselves entertained, he would end up being like, hey, Jacob, like,
I found a new thing
and I want to be able to play it, but I need someone else to play it with.
Yeah, you should play it with me. Yeah. Because our sister didn't have interest in that kind of stuff at all. Oh, that's cool, Psychodia. Yeah, giving your make-believe world a physics engine, or alternatively giving your RPG genre video game near infinite choices. Yep, exactly. So when we started delving into, I would say, our specific areas that we found to be interesting with specifically D&D. D&D came much later. And D&D came, I would say, as we realized that these were based on the system of D&D, and D&D became this like, whoa, it's the original, basically.
But we were just like, but Star Wars, it's like it's better, you know?
So I started out trying to figure out ways to rope in my other friends with Jacob and I into our Star Wars games and stuff like that, and it worked horribly, basically. But the thing that was fun was that I started DMing because someone had to do it. Basically someone had to do it, and I found the creation of the story parts to be kind of fun because I didn't have, I think, the patience to sit down and write a book story like in a cohesive, structured way. I loved the riffing on the story stuff.
Yeah, and we were already writing like our own versions of Star Wars fan fiction. So, doing a Star Wars system, it's like, hey, cool.
Yeah, and it wasn't really until I was like much older, probably about 24. When was the Hut campaign started?
Well, okay,
there was the failed Sith acolyte thing.
That one was great. Well, okay, so it went back a bit further. So
way further. Yeah.
Basically, the way it happened was
because I went to school. Yeah, but when I came back,
for a long time, it was me and Caleb playing 1-on-1.
Yep.
And it's just kind of like figuring out the rules, and then we ended up getting some of our younger brothers. Well, tried to get some of our younger brothers into it, but like they were way too young to really understand the rules. But it was still fun. Yeah. Right. So even if we didn't know what we were doing.
Right. So we ended up trying to get like cousins and friends and stuff into it.
Well, right. Because what had happened, because you kind of went off the bandwagon for a bit, and then I still wanted to play.
Right.
So I tried to DM for the younger siblings and still get, because they still enjoyed it, even though they had no clue what they were doing.
Right.
And that was absolutely horrible because I was like 14 at the time or something, and I was more of just making characters for them and saying like, hey, this is a cool build, try this. And then that ended up dying out. And then the cousins, we found out that some of them were into it. And
we used Star Wars as the medium. We used
Star Wars as the thing because everyone loves Star Wars.
Everyone loves Star Wars. So once I came back from school, though, I'm like 21 or something like that. We ended up trying to find a way to do this in such a way, and we do different mini one shots with Star Wars, basically.
Right.
But found out that there was a new system being developed by Fantasy Flight for Star Wars,
amazing.
Which was one where they did away with the whole number-sided die system.
Right.
And
no D20.
No D20, no D6, no D8,
which is
whatever. And it
huge for any of you that aren't familiar with tabletop RPGs, because that's something ever since 3rd edition D&D, I think.
Right. So we're still not. We still haven't played D&D at this point. At this point, we still haven't done that yet. And we loved the narrative flow that came in this Fantasy Flight version of Star Wars here. And I ended up deciding, I'm going to get serious in this, and I'm going to make my own custom homebrewed campaign.
Yep, it was awesome.
And it was really awesome. It brought in a couple friends of ours from all other areas and stuff like
Frisbee
that.
And
yeah. And then when we'd meet up, we'd have that classic kind of, I would say, D&D type experience there. Yep. People making characters, people role playing, figuring out the world and stuff. Us figuring out and being patient with me as I tried to do this whole DMGM thing.
You didn't like learning the rules.
I wasn't very good at learning the rules and keeping things memorized and stuff, so it was much more off the cuff, kind of brainstorm in the shower and riff on the story.
But you did amazing stories.
Considering where I was at the time, they were good for then. But then this wonderful thing called Critical Role came into our lives, and you should talk about that.
Everything,
that changed everything. Yeah.
And the thing is when I heard about Critical Role, because I was the one who got Caleb into it.
Yep.
But when I heard about it, because I think you were the one who told me about it, you were like, "Oh, you never heard about Critical Role? Yeah, it's one of the longest running shows or whatever as far as runtime, right?" And I'm like, "Wait, 500 hours of watching other people play D&D? Right. That seems awful. Why would anyone do that?" And then I look it up because I'm just curious, right? I'm like, what does this actually look like?
Right.
And I'm like, 4-hour episodes, no way. But I'm like, highlights, because things just ended up showing up in the newsfeed because I had searched Critical Role and whatnot. And I started watching some, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. And because we had watched Titan's Grave with Laura Bailey, right? And I think that was how we ended up finding out about Critical Role. because Laura Bailey on Titan's Grave was amazing. You're Lowenthal too, but like it was just like, okay, cool.
Whoa, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So it was a friend that introduced us to Titan's Grave because we were doing our Star Wars campaign and stuff, and then from there we ended up finding out that Laura Bailey goes to this other show called Critical Role or something like that. Then we ended up watching Critical Role highlights, and from Critical Role highlights, Jacob ended up watching the entire show. And then
I thought he'd never leave.
Yeah, and then we almost go to what was basically right around a year ago or so. Jacob and I are doing the channel and stuff like that. Jacob is playing D&D, or has been playing D&D probably for a few years now at this point. That's something where you should share that, because I don't have perspective on a lot of those stories.
Well, because one of the thing that was perpetually tough is, especially growing up, was finding a group, right? Yep. Because for the longest time, it was really just me and Caleb, right?
Yep.
And DMing by yourself can get lonely, especially when you're new to it and everything. So So there, there was the whole thing of like, okay, well, so how does this work? And then I found out that
is that your summer job?
Yeah, at the summer job, that was when I first when I first played actual Dungeons and Dragons, right? 5th edition. Some people at like the local bookstore and like some other people that I knew.
Go to your local bookstores. Yeah, they all play D&D
because I mean, the nerds congregate in places. It's hard to find, but they exist. Because I spent a bunch of time at the bookstore, anyways. And I was like, oh, D&D. Yeah, I've never actually played D&D, just Star Wars. So we started playing that, and that was a lot of fun. And it was only like a few games because I was there for like a few months, and then I left.
Right.
But and I came back, and when I got introduced to Critical Role, that's when I sort of got a bit more into 5th edition, because I tried doing like Pathfinder Society, and I didn't like that because there was no role playing whatsoever. It was awful.
It was basically a tactical dungeon crawler.
Right, and the tactical part of games is fun. I mean, it wasn't even really elitist. It was just like they were playing a game, and there was nothing else to it. And it's like, okay, then why not just play a video game, Or
why not just play a board game?
Right, exactly, yeah. And then I think because of Critical Role, I got a bit more interested in 5e, because it was also just the idea of the fantasy. Like, every now and then you just get that itch for fantasy. And even though I loved Star Wars, I just wanted to use magic and stuff.
That was a huge part of it, I think, for me as well, because I was interested in the whole fulfilling a fantasy. But for me, growing up, Star Wars was such an important story for me. Yeah. Everything about it, I had so much investment into the fantasies of that universe. Yep. I had read and consumed so much expanded universe content that if I just went and wrote a list out of all the things, y'all would, we could do a podcast on just Star Wars expanded universe stuff.
But by the way, side note, one of the best ways to get into the Star Wars expanded universe, in addition to just like reading, books and things like that, is actually the Star Wars role-playing game books. Yep. Because there's so much good stuff in there. Like,
so much
even when I wasn't actually playing, I would still go to the local library and like get them to read them for like, builds and stuff like that, because I was interested in that, but also just lore, like reading about the Mandalorians and the Old Republic and stuff. It's great.
Sorry, I forgot to read off a sub here. Yo-Yo Man 831, thank you so much for the tier 1 resub for your 4th month in a row. Says, I swear I already shared my 4-month a few weeks ago, unless I'm tripping. Anyways, nice beanies, J-Lubs. Thank you. Appreciate it, Yo-Yo Man. Sorry for that a little late and stuff, but so we end up getting this weird dynamic where Jacob has now taken off in D&D. He is way more into tabletop RPGs than I am at that point. And I think what happened was when I was involved in the Star Wars campaign that I did, I got burned out because of people coming to the campaign for different reasons.
Yes.
And this is something that I'm sure that anyone who's played D&D or any kind of tabletop RPGs understands this struggle, is you sometimes are stuck with a group. Like, this is the group you have, and you do your best to kind of find ways to make the group cohesion strong.
Right.
But ultimately, the individual desires and wills and stuff will win out over the long haul and make some aspects of party cohesion a little bit difficult. And also just scheduling, just keeping kind of a cohesive, I would say, what's the eternal struggle. It's not even getting to level 20. It's not even all these other things. It's just meeting up with people consistently.
Because like back when we were playing with our cousins, you weren't in that game because you were in school during the school year. And then I had summer job in Eastern Washington over the
that was like
summer,
a 5-year campaign.
That was like a 5-year campaign where we had maybe 12 meetings. Like it was ridiculous. Because we had people from multiple different families, and we were young enough at the point that not a lot of us actually could drive.
Right.
So it was like trying to meet up was basically impossible, and the DM was like working and and like getting married and things like that, and it was basically impossible. But with the Star Wars one, that was actually where we were able to finally get something that met fairly regularly because people were
we're kind of jumping around the timeline here a bit, but I think this is important because we're going to be talking about in a bit what story specific things came out of this whole story here, this whole experience. And one of the biggest things for me throughout this whole thing here was I rarely was a player. I was a player, I think, twice. And I think I was a DM like 4 times in different campaigns and stuff. And one of my things that I found to be very engaging and fun was actually creating NPCs, making just an unending slew of characters that I would invest varying levels of energy into each one. Someone would literally have one gimmick, and that would be their character.
Got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. And I would make like 50 of those. And it was my favorite thing to just have a list of characters in a folder somewhere and just be like, I'm going to pluck you out of here. And they would cross universes, they would cross planets or whatever, but the template for the character would work in another part of the story. And then other times I'd be like, I'm going to go so in depth into this NPC, like this is practically a player character, just go into that being so much fun.
And then I killed 24 of them all at once.
And oftentimes I would have the player characters getting completely different things from it, but all in all, the actual experience of making the characters, the actual process was so much fun that sometimes I would even have less fun playing the game than actually prepping the game.
And that's one of those things where you need to find a group that works. And if the group doesn't work for you, you can leave. It's fine. You will.
But fall in love with that process.
Fall in love with the process because that's very important. And in our day and age with like Discord and things like that, like 2 campaigns that I'm in right now. Are just on Discord.
Right.
Like, just. There you go. And that's it works. It works.
But that thing, falling in love with the process, does that translate over well to just general storytelling advice? Yeah, I think it does.
It does a lot.
I think it really does.
Yeah.
So that's huge. So overall, this whole thing has come to basically a head of where right now the reason why we're doing a podcast on this is I've just been over and over again the last, I would say, 6 months just getting bitten by the D&D bug. Like I am
it's cool to see.
Like I really want to play. I'm just trying to figure out how to juggle time, whether or not I want to DM, whether or not I want to just find a group and be a player, do all that stuff. And Jacob has been a huge part of that, and particularly through the vessel of Critical Role being kind of this extra community that I can jump into that's a subset of the D&D community, which is also getting extremely large comparatively to where it was 10 years ago.
That is an excellent point.
To where I can literally just be at a Frisbee game and people to the right of me, like 2 of them, are just gabbing on about the Barbarian and Paladin classes and how they are really struggling to figure out which one really fits their class fantasy archetype.
Both.
Exactly. And then I just was like, oh, D&D? And they're like, D&D? And then we just started talking,
because one of the things about D&D is that because it can be a lot like a job in a sense, in the time consuming aspect, yes, but putting that aside, in that one of the things that can make or break an experience of D&D in the same way as a job is the people, right? So in Caleb's case, he was constantly being the manager, right? And never being able to cut loose and have fun, right?
So now I want to cut loose and have fun.
Now he wants to cut loose and have fun. And, for me, seeing what it could be actualized with, you know, in Critical Role and Titan's Grave and things like that, as opposed to me just thinking up characters and stuff. Because then I basically just had the rule book of being like, oh yeah, okay, this could be interesting if in some fantastical land I actually got to make a character for a game that would be played, you know, then oh, I could do this, you know, and then I'd have like 24 of those, and then on the off chance that something like that would actually happen, I'd be like, okay, now I need to choose. And it was crazy. But so with Critical Role, if you're on the fence with like Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, just check out some of the highlights
on YouTube.
You know, on YouTube. They're hilarious, and you can see how it is so much more than just a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's more than just a game. It's collaborative storytelling at its finest.
Oh, yes.
Tabletop role-playing games can get more dynamic with the story and everything than like anything else, because you can your imagination is the only limit. Right? You have to work with all the other people at the table, but it's all your imagination. Like, oftentimes, you don't even need a map, or sometimes you'll go an entire session without even really doing, like, combat, or, you know, or things like that. And because it's all roleplay. And that can be absolutely incredible.
Right. It's probably one of the funnest things to just gab about the game, but even better when you're gabbing in the game with the people that you're playing with. That takes things to a whole nother level. Like, a lot of it is escapism for sure, but other parts of it is that there's a creative, and this is my sappy belief here, is there's a creative voice inside everyone. Everyone has one. The idea that D&D is one of those very accessible means by which you can release it and voice it and play with it and experiment with it is genius, because then you go from D&D, and this has been something that's, I would say, flexed your creative voice, but also built your confidence in your creative voice. And then you go, wait a minute, I actually want to do the DM thing. That seems pretty fun. You do that, and then suddenly you realize, I just made a world, a cast of characters, a compelling plot and conflict. Wait, what is a book again?
There
Basically. You go.
And there's definitely differences, which is you know, important to see. And playing D&D is actually one of the best ways that I know of to basically understand storytelling better, because you start, I mean, if you think about it a lot, you start to see the differences in what works and what doesn't, and then potentially why. Because one of the things that pretty much everyone will do when they start playing D&D, especially if they start playing younger, is they'll make the OC, right? And technically all of them are OCs, yes, but like the idea of the main character of the story, you know, the edgelord, the person who's the half angel, half demon with some monster inside of them that you based off of some other character, and you definitely have a bunch of generic like rock or metal songs to you know, to basically encapsulate what that character is like. We all start somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
And those characters can be awesome, but one of the things that you can, or at least I know I ended up discovering, was that there's a big difference in tabletop RPGs with the character that you make and how it is in your head, and then how it gets communicated to the game master, to the other players. Because one of the things that players love to do is talk about their character, right?
Oh, yes.
Because it's this awesome thing, right? And you want to share it with them. And that communal experience of experiencing these characters and these stories that you make together is absolutely incredible when it happens, right? But the thing is that with D&D, it's a different medium. It's not something where they are the perspective character, right? So you can't just tell about your character. You have to show. You have to have your character have a unique voice that basically helps. And this is all like, if you're wanting to do some like crazy narrative stuff with it, you don't have to do that in order to start out, right? But that's one of those things that at least for me, I came to realize how different that was with storytelling in like books versus movies versus D&D as like this third dimension, right? Because oftentimes we'll be able to say like, oh yeah, the movie was a terrible adaptation of the books, and oftentimes it's right, but usually it's grounded in some idea that they didn't do justice to the characters, and that's because there's levels of indirection. It's the actors needing to interpret the work and the script and then communicate it back to you, as opposed to you just observing it directly, right? And with D&D, you can really get an experience of that you wouldn't get anywhere else, because you're getting live feedback from the other players, right? So you know what works and what doesn't. You know kind of where they stand as far as your character, and there could be a big disconnect between your vision of the character and how they see the character. But that was a long kind of rant.
No, but that's really good, because one of the things that ties into is that when you're writing characters, it's very easy to make every character sound the same, like accidentally. But when you're playing D&D, one of the things that you'll realize is you have this list of characters you can't wait to play, right?
Yeah.
But when you actually play them and stuff, you realize that you need to find the voice for that character. And not the actual, like, literal voice-acted voice of that character, or their accent, mind you, but actually the flavor of how they express who they are.
Right, and the expression is important, because you can have, like, the tsundere, for instance, right? Whether you're talking about in anime or, like, the tsundere grandpa.
For sure,
This is something that people try to do a lot more in D&D, is they'll want their character to be the person with the tragic backstory and they're brooding and quiet. But that just comes across as flat, because there's no reason to draw attention to those brooding and quiet moments in, like, a table setting, as opposed to in like a movie or a television show or a game or whatever, right? And that can basically help you see what an audience will actually latch onto.
Right.
Why an anime, or just, in stories in general, but especially in anime, the characters will end up being so stereotypical, right? There'll be some archetype, and they'll focus on that, and them having their little shtick that they do to basically cement a place in the audience's mind, right? And in tabletops, I would say that's even more prominent, that you kind of need to have something like that in order because everyone's more interested in their own character than they are in your character.
Sadly,
right? That's like, unless you actually are blessed enough to be in a group of, like, drama people, like the cast of Critical Role.
Right,
That's basically what you're going to be dealing with. So you have to be a lot more aggressive with introducing that character, which, hey, is another great, like, exercise for storytelling. So that way, even though every bit of time spent on your character is time that could be spent on their character, you need to somehow make it so that when time is spent on your character, they're like, ooh, yeah, what's going to happen next? That's tough to do, and it can be so rewarding when people, like, when you get that person, it's like, oh my gosh, your character was so amazing, like, I hope you play them again. It's like,
yes, that's the best. I would say that when you're playing tabletop RPGs, when you're playing D&D, and you're actually, like, kind of getting kind of into the flow of this, one of the things that is really cool, just learning, I would say, a little bit from Critical Role, because not everyone is going to be as good, like, even close to as good as the improv, voice acting,
like, these people
acting in general,
do drama and acting for a living.
They're paid tons of money to do that. So,
and it's very entertaining to watch because of it.
Right. But when you're starting out here, like, one of the things that's, like, very good that Jacob's bringing up here is the whole idea of the archetype. Like, go and look up, like, the archetypes of, like, the hero's journey or something like that. Or
explore tvtropes.net.
Explore TV tropes. Like, yes, seriously. Like, this is something that we titled this, podcast about the story lessons from D&D. One of the things that you'll find out is you get more and more acclimated into playing D&D, and specifically role-playing within D&D. You'll find out that a lot of the things that make a good experience for the group, because of what you bring to the table, are a lot of the same things that make a story entertaining when you write it in the same way. So finding ways to make your character stand out from the rest of them. And I'm not talking about having an anime where this girl has a different color of hair. I'm talking about having a voice that once you hear the way they intone each word, or the way that they bring out their energy in a specific, encounter or something like that, you go, oh, that's as expected of. Actually, this is one of the things that's funny. In shonen, they'll do this a lot. You'll have a character who has a shtick, and they'll do their shtick, and another character will go, as expected of that person. I don't like that, actually, in stories, because it reminds me that they're a shtick.
Right.
But
they're taking what is showing of having them do the shtick, right? And it's like, yes, you recognize them, but then they're basically kind of insulting you by having a character tell you they just did their shtick. It's like, yeah, we know that. Like,
we know that.
We've seen them do it before.
But the actual act of using their shtick, using their thing that makes their character stand out from the rest of them, is very good. That's very good.
Yeah.
Because if you had, say, a cast of D&D characters, and there's, say, like 6 to 8 of them or whatever. That's a big party.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you, there's going to be some crossover in the style of characters. Just a little bit. Like,
sure.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you can somehow create a character that has no crossover with anyone else there, it's people will go and they will remember your character, and in the future, when the campaign's over and done, they'll talk about your character to other people and go, I once saw this character. Let me tell you, this gnome bard Scanlan, oh my gosh, let me tell you, and so on and so forth. And it's not actually as intimidating of a thing, because you're actually talking about a shtick, not a 3D fully fleshed out character.
But the thing is, you remember them as characters because you all went on this journey together, right? It's not about remember when the DM had that dragon show up and we had to kill it. It's holy crap. You remember when we were like walking along in this place and we were trying to investigate what was happening here, and then all of a sudden we hear like a rumbling and we're like getting nervous, and then suddenly we see a big eye open up from the wall and we're like, oh shit, right? And then the dragon comes out and it breathes fire all over Jimmy, and Jimmy's just toast, and then we're like, oh no, what are we gonna do? So then we have to run because it's a dragon, so we pick up the charred remains of Jimmy's body, try and go find someone that can bring him back. That is like...
Yeah, and then maybe that one character quips something that's really funny in the moment of this thing that fits so well for the character and the moment, and the group remembers it and it's immortalized forever. And right there, what that person just did was essentially clever storytelling, clever writing, but it's all done in the, with the use of their creative voice just being let loose for a specific moment.
And that's one of the things...
That's something you can take from D&D into actual, like, storytelling.
And that is something you can see done very well in Critical Role, because like if you were like, okay, campaign 1, 500 hours, this is a lot, right? I still haven't seen campaign 1. I've watched more of like the highlights and then like certain episodes and stuff. Campaign 2, when I started campaign 2, I'm watching it and I'm like, cool, this is great, new campaign, I can actually follow it from the beginning. And then all the characters are introduced and stuff, and the thing is, you could tell that they were kind of nervous about the fact that they're revealing characters that are going to be with them for the next 5 years as they do this show for hundreds of thousands of people.
Right.
No pressure. But then Laura Bailey, being Laura Bailey, just jumps right into it, right?
Yeah.
And she's Jester, and she has treats and donuts and and all that stuff, and it's great, right? And you can
I can't do the accent either, so I'm not even gonna try.
and then it's like, oh, okay, I understand this character, right? And then you could see them all being like, okay, yeah, going a bit more into it, like
getting a little more comfortable.
Caleb, like Liam O'Brien's character, not
Caleb.
This Caleb. Yeah, that's caused a lot of confusion recently, but having like the subtlest German accent at the beginning to now where he's like, yeah, so we are going to, go over here and
okay, but that's going into too many specific things
but basically and the thing is that they're still playing archetypes for the most part.
They are.
Their characters are very simple, but they're excellent. Like Jester being all positive, or Caleb doing his 1,000-yard stares and reminiscing about the last time he had a caramel apple.
Okay, let's talk less about the specific things and stuff there. What we've learned out of all of this is that you take the experience of people like Critical Role, and you look at what they've done, and it's amazing, and then you take your own experiences and stuff with this, and you realize, wait, like all of this is not as complicated, not as vast, not as strange, or not even as scary as it really is. Like it's I think I'm saying this wrong. What I'm trying to say is that the whole experience of where it comes to storytelling within D&D as a medium is actually way more accessible than you'd think.
Especially nowadays. And as intimidating as it can seem, because, you get handed like 3 textbooks. Well, not 3, but, you get handed a textbook, and this is like, oh, what's this? Is this like something for me to sit on to like, you think I'm short or something? It's like, no, that's actually the rules. It's like, oh, okay.
Right. You don't even really need that in the beginning here.
Like, it can be one of the most wonderful things, because it's all based on basically just improv, like running off each other and doing all sorts of things and whatnot.
The best thing you could probably do for D&D would not be to read the rules, but would be to take an improv class. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, like, that's probably the best thing you could do. But there's some specific things. Yeah, Jacob is actually taking improv classes right now. It's pretty awesome.
And it's interesting explaining to people that I'm doing it because of D&D. But
so some of the things that we specifically want to kind of talk to you guys about before we get into kind of a more viewer interaction thing. Sorry, we've been missing a lot of your questions here, but there's a couple things that we've taken from our experience with D&D and watching other people play D&D and what we love about D&D into storytelling. And one of the ones that I think is really big here is just write more, and editing comes much later. Right. What I mean by this is I told you about my love of writing or creating the NPCs. I almost don't even see it as writing anymore, because you think about what makes an NPC, and you need to give them basically like an avatar, some kind of thing that will look like a person in D&D's setting, a little personality, as a quirk, and then maybe some kind of purpose within the story at the point that they're brought in. Other than that, that's a character. That is a character. Let me tell you, characters are not hard to make. Like, it's...
If you actually want a great example of what D&D is like and how simple the characters can be, watch Konosuba.
Oh my god, yes.
Because that will also help set properly your expectations of what Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role-playing is. Because so you want it to be the epic adventures as you do all the crazy stuff, and sometimes it can be. But a lot of the times, most of the time, you're basically just a bunch of bumbling idiots and going on a bunch of misadventures, and it is wonderful.
It's so wonderful.
It is wonderful. And the characters can be as simple as, I am a masochistic paladin, or, whatever.
I'm a wizard that only knows one spell.
Exactly,
and I didn't care to really do anything with my hit point stuff. What kind of character would that create, Like, all those little things are, an essence of someone's creative voice being essentially made manifest in an avatar form in the world of D&D, or in that, Konosuba's case, that show. And it's hilarious how what ended up being kind of a parody, or what was, I would say, in some ways a parody, ended up becoming kind of a golden, like, ideal standard of, like, what everyone's party should look like. Oh, we're all idiots. We're all stupid, just running around. We can't even kill 3 frogs, Like,
exactly.
Like,
and that can be one of the most entertaining things about Critical Role too.
Yes.
Because you can see all these people that are professional voice actors, like, and you'll see them get into these stupid, silly, hilarious situations where they don't know what they're doing either. They're just as much bumbling around, admittedly with more style,
right?
But still bumbling around just like you or I would,
yep.
If we're playing with our friends on a Friday night. Like, it's great.
It's amazing. It's something that I think that if you have any inkling of desire to get into D&D and you need a little bit of help, take Jacob's advice, watch some Critical Role highlights, but also ask around at your local game store, bookstore, something like that, or go online too. There are a bunch of Discord open, like you can just jump in Discord groups where they'll play D&D or tons of other tabletop RPGs.
Yep.
And, like, it's a Google search away. Do that and just say, hey, I'm new and I want to know where I should start. And if you have a friend that's with you in this, it makes it a lot better. Go together. Yeah. Like, go through things together and stuff. Jacob and I have each other, so it makes things, things way easier in that regard. But, give it a shot. It's so rewarding, and we're talking about it, I would say, so far into the like the story implications of where you can like absorb specific things from the whole experience to take that to your storytelling capacity. But just the experience and the entertainment value and the things that it will grow within you as a person makes it hugely worth it. So that's our shill to play tabletop RPGs.
Yeah, most of the stuff that like helps make tabletops go better and where the drama tends to come in, if there is any, is basically just based on like human interaction type stuff. So it's actually quite character building in the metaphorical and literal sense. Because you have to interact with all these other people and make some sort of cohesive story when the initial instinct might be that you want to make your own story, but that's not quite what you're doing. You're all together making one big story,
Oh man,
lending your energy.
It's so fun I'll say from a DM's perspective, watching your players take your story to be more than you ever could have like designed it to be.
Yep.
There are specific moments in campaigns that I remember still to this day where I don't even like telling Jacob that they were one of those things there, because I like taking credit for that story part being something that, oh yeah, Keikaku Dori, all according to plan, and as I'm like behind the scenes just like, what is happening, writing in like things grabbing things to make it, you know, seem like it works and stuff, and
it's
then
all mildly organized chaos.
Yeah, mildly organized chaos, and then it ends up working out being this really cool thing. So
the emergent behavior in stories you can get from like D&D sessions is one of the best things ever.
And it, I would say, unlocks your creative mind and voice to be more loose with how you create your own stories, because you're not looking for this perfectly rigid outline storylines.
Exactly.
You can actually do discovery-based storylines in an easy and accessible way when you DM, and then you realize, oh my god, like, that's what Hunter x Hunter is.
Right.
Like, this is what Hunter x Hunter is. Like, there's a bunch of stories actually where like this more and more recently, because D&D is so popular.
Thanks to Critical Role.
Thanks to a lot of things. Yeah. There are actual anime that we've like heard people say like, oh, this is a really rewarding experience if you like D&D, because they like are sometimes not even subtle about it. They just plop D&D mechanics
I hear
into...
in Overlord, they straight up just say like, I'm adding this meta magic feat onto this spell, like heightened, empowered, super, you know, extended, distant fireball or something.
It's like, sorcerers? Is that a sorcerer ability? You know, and that kind of thing makes it, I would say, more kind of obvious. But then there's other stories out there where you realize, wait a minute, the storyteller is just a DM making this up as they go along.
It changes your entire perspective of other stories, because you're constantly just thinking like, okay, so this is a game where you have a party and the party's doing this and the DM's doing this.
Right.
And chaos ensues, and it's wonderful. Yeah.
I've seen many other things where people took the inspiration of that whole dynamic and applied it to things like Star Wars. There's a very amazing website called Darts and Droids where they basically spun the whole Star Wars storyline into this D&D inspired webcomic.
As if it was all a
D&D game. All a D&D game.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yep.
That kind of stuff there is just brilliant. Yes. Hunter x Hunter's Palace Invasion is one of the most D&D things I've ever seen in anime. Because basically they're all out there deliberating on their strategy for a long time on how they're going to enter this super dungeon.
That's so true.
And then suddenly everything slows down because combat just started. People rolled initiative.
6 seconds per round.
6 seconds per round. So it's like
3 months.
You have like Dio in the background. 4 seconds has passed. 5 seconds has passed. 6 seconds has passed.
If only it passed that quickly.
Right, if only they passed that quickly.
Yeah. But it can just be some of the just some of the best stuff ever.
It's so good. So we're going to do a fun little thing with y'all here. And this is where we want to spend the majority of the rest of the podcast here. We're going to make D&D characters on the spot with all of you.
Yep.
So if you're in chat here, I have basically just 3 parameters that you have to use by, and then we will adhere to your question. We'll answer questions, of course, in the meantime while doing this and stuff as well. But what we would like to have you do is give us a class race combo. Now, you don't have to even have something that's in D&D, for instance. You have be whatever. Just give us a class race combo. An example would be a human paladin, you know?
Yeah. By the way, if you want great premises for characters,
look
up.
I'll link it. I'll link it. It's really funny.
Yes.
Let me find this. This is some funny. This is some funny stuff.
Who the F is my D&D character?
Yeah. I'm gonna type this in.
That. Yeah. You can get some most golden, wonderful things from It's like,
I know this site. Yeah. This is an example of how to have fun making these types of characters and stuff, but I'm dead serious here. This is how easy it is.
Genius, like, because you can have something.
Characters.
Because the thing is, like, one of the best ways to get someone invested in a character is to make them be entertained by the character, and then have there be depth to it that goes beyond just the surface level. Anime does this all the time. And, oh boy.
So, I need a class race combo and one kind of story/personality quirk. Like, something like that. And we'll just riff on it until we have, I'd say, enough satisfaction with it just being a character right there.
People are just posting
examples
from the site. Moody elf warlock from the local tavern who has a weapons instructor for the city militia. Yeah, okay. A flirtatious human sorcerer from a quiet woodland hut who worries some of their memories have been tampered with. Exactly.
So the three parameters are class race combo with one story/personality quirk.
Yep.
So someone said no monk way of the drunken fist. So basically you have this gnome, and at some point they basically got into a bar fight.
Sure.
And they got into a bar fight with another monk who has way of the drunken fist. And this gnome got the crap beat out of them, right?
And that's how they taught them all they know?
That's how they taught them all they know.
So how old is this character?
So this gnome, I would say, is a little bit of a hothead young character.
So like 70?
Yeah.
Gnomes are generally really old.
Yes, that's true. But they're the kind of age where they've got just enough spunk in them, but they grow out of their youthful, I would say, kind of chaotic kind of nature.
Maybe like 69.
Okay, but the point is that they spend a lot of time learning this style and stuff, but they also end up traveling a lot with this drunken master guy.
So if they're a drunken
way the drunken fist,
way the drunken fist, then they've probably been in a lot of fights. Yeah. And given the drunken aspect of it, I wouldn't be surprised if they got hit a lot.
Oh yeah.
So maybe their face is just like a mess of like
bruises and scars
and like broken like nose, signs.
But
and
this is
like
a gnome. No one expects anything about a physicality of a gnome.
Right, exactly. So maybe they just think that like, oh man, this gnome led a rough life. He's had some bad stuff happen to him. But no, what people don't realize is that this gnome has actually been able to dish out more punishment on people than like you would believe.
Right.
So, what's the name of this gnome?
I would say this gnome. That's actually probably one of the things that I'd say is almost irrelevant.
Spunkle Frederickstein.
Spunkle is the first name?
Spunkle Frederickstein.
Okay. Yeah, that's an awesome name. I would say I care so little about the name's correlation to the character.
The name's the hardest part.
The name is the hardest part if you think it has to make sense within the confines of who the character is.
Fair point.
Oftentimes, the name is actually where you have the most fun with the character.
It absolutely
Because if you have this really edgy Asimar, like, Warlock or something like that, but then you make their name like Beatrice or something like that.
Well, so one of my favorite characters, and this is one of the ones that I got that compliment of, this is the best character I've ever seen.
Yes,
and it was so amazing, was this bugbear named Helga Hammerfist. She was very sexually frustrated and trying to find a man. But the thing is, she was also a bit of a bruiser. She was a ranger rogue combo and absolutely terrifying in the dark, because she would ambush you and you wouldn't know where she came from. But it was great.
Oh, it's so good. I love it. Oh my gosh, people are still just posting things.
Basically, never take it too seriously.
Yeah. How about this, Semblance? A young, spry ASMR sorcerer who insists on magical girl posing and fake names for all of her spells. Sparkly Super Fireball. Her party hates her.
Yes. So, see, that sounds absolutely wonderful.
That's beautiful.
You could have her name be like, I don't know.
I think her name would actually be something that would rip off of like almost a specific magical girl, but like in the most like obvious way, but with like one letter missing, so that it's not actually that like much of a problem.
Or it could be some sort of like My Little Pony reference.
I think possibly. The thing I actually find interesting about the really young characters who have all this zeal specifically around their character is I actually love those characters that seem like they're kind of forcing it, like just a little bit. You don't have to go really dark in the backstory or anything, but just have it be where this character sees the importance of releasing a positive energy out into the world for some reason, but they're also casting fireballs.
Right.
So
that simple contradiction
can be interesting, because let's say they haven't themselves rectified what it means to be wholesale slaughtering goblins in caves.
Right, exactly.
So when that happens, they have that moment where they sit down with the cleric and they go, "Hey,
Am I a bad person for slaughtering hundreds of innocents?
Healy Mick won't die. Am I a murderer? Am I a bad person?
I mean, I know we didn't stop with the goblins and we slaughtered their children and everything, because some crazy stuff can happen in D&D. And if you think you're just fighting goblins and stuff, and you don't murder the shopkeep that sees you try and steal something off of the shelf, then you've got another thing coming. But
it's also the character you never want to see given to the reality of their environment, because it's the most heartbreaking or grounding.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Michael Mick doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
What the heck? There are a lot of ones that have been... Oh, wait, Ferreo, thank you for introducing me to Darth and Droids. You are welcome, Ferreo. You're so welcome.
Yep.
Yeah. Try to take the challenge for real just a bit. Yes, so the limitations are I need a class race combo with one story/personality quirk. Just something like that. Wait. A dwarf medicus who doesn't trust living beings that are 1.5 to 5 times taller than him. Wait, so...
Okay.
So basically someone...
He doesn't trust tall people.
He doesn't trust tall people.
Mm-hmm. Unless they're really tall.
So this is a dwarf medicus, which I don't know what medicus means. That was just
I have
healer.
no idea. Probably
it might be a Pathfinder thing.
Yeah, it might be a Pathfinder. In earlier editions of D&D, they had a lot more base classes.
Okay, so let's say this is a dwarf healer who doesn't trust people that are taller than him. Yeah. One of the things that I could see being very interesting here is, let's say what he is very much a point of is that when they're standing near him, he feels looked down upon. There's a little bit of insecurity there. But when he's tending to someone and they're lying down, hey, they're suddenly shorter than him.
Exactly, we're on equal footing.
Right. Yeah. So he suddenly, has all this, compassion and empathy that he can give out to those people that need, hurt there. But he has a little bit of a twinge when maybe they stand up and walk away and they don't thank him. Maybe he feels like his job isn't giving him, he's not being, the people aren't grateful for all the lives that he's saved.
And maybe that came from something. Maybe it was that he was bullied as a kid, or maybe it was that he had a lover who never respected him because left him for some taller person or whatever,
Sure.
Who knows.
Sure. And then you could go into the aspects of racism there, because he's specifically saying, well, gnomes and dwarves and a couple others, you guys are fine, but everyone taller than me? No, there's real problems there.
And that could cause a lot of inter-party conflict too. Because, if you have someone, and by the way, that can be kind of tough to do. If you have something where it's my character's racist or something against these types of characters, you don't want to be the character that basically causes unnecessary tension within the party, especially when it's not welcome, where it's not a bunch of drama people, so that they'll play off of those sorts of things, specifically just because it's playing to your character. It's what your character would do, because you're all playing this game together, so make a character that'll work well with everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Fanatical half-orc sorcerer who believes that he is the prophet destined to unify the half-orc race and must deal with constant ridicule from the real races when undertaking his quest. Okay, so that's really interesting, because this character is thinking that this is their destiny. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you could really go through with this is that they believe it's their destiny, but they need the party in order to actually make this probable, because there's so many things that they can't do.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, it's going to be them utilizing it. And I love that sorcerers are charisma-based in this case, because he would be good at persuading people and convincing people that this is the right thing to do. But the first people he needs to convince about this is the party,
right next to
the people right next to him and stuff as well.
And then there could be a whole thing of is his need to convince them and his prophecy and all that stuff, or his,
is that even real?
Prophet being, is that real? Is that something that he's taken on for himself, dreamed up himself? If so, is that to hide insecurities of his own?
Right.
For a charisma-based character, that's a pretty interesting contradiction right there.
Yeah. Does he need to have followers, or does he need to be the leader here, or is there something here where even, let's say, the real world implications of even doing this are something that might not be better for the world in general? Maybe half orcs shouldn't be united underneath one single thing there, and if you did unite them, what would they be united under? Would you need them to have an enemy? Would you need them to be underneath your control? There's a lot of stuff that you can do there.
Okay, a little redux from my previous post. Class is Spell Sword Elf, who can only effectively cast spells when drunk because of confidence issues.
Oh, that's great.
That is amazing.
That's amazing.
That is wonderful. yeah, there's.
I can already hear their voice, you know, basically just like, you know, I need, like,
and then fireball.
Can we please go to the bar before we
they're just
before
like
we leave the town,
know,
you know. And the thing is, the thing I would love about them is that they would be kind of a klepto. Like I assume they would, because let's imagine your campaign has time in the city and out of the city. When they're out of the city, how do you get more alcohol?
Sure.
I mean, what I think they would actually
barbarian carry.
Well, that's the thing. You'd have this really fragile like box, and it has your alcohol and stuff. But the thing is that as you get more and more drunk, you become more and more tolerable of it. It takes more alcohol for you to get drunk.
Sure.
It becomes an addiction. It becomes a problem where the group, you're spending party funds on, you know, alcohol, when it's like, bro, if you got over your
got the financial
issues,
manager like, get away.
Yeah. You could even have them in their drunkenness steal from the party, and end up having to be confronted.
And these are all things that you could do, but you wouldn't have to do. You wouldn't have to have it take a serious spin, but you absolutely could if you wanted to. Or you could just have it be a fun shtick, you know, for when you're, you know, playing, mess around, and, you know, dungeon diving and doing all that stuff, right?
You could like tell your DM, you like, specifically, what was this? Was this a spell sword? I think they said there. But like, you could tell your DM to like intentionally make the DCs higher for like certain things when you're drunk, to like make it just be fun that your character somehow is able to cast your spells in the right direction. Even like the party just kind of pushes you into the cave and just like, okay, go crazy for a little bit. We'll come
taking
out.
wild magic to a whole nother
level.
level.
There you go, wild magic for sure.
Or maybe you black out and then you wake up. And like you blew up a building, or people tell you blew up a building, but you're not sure, and you're like, did I do that?
Right, totally. I don't know, D&D classes, Angel/Warlock, raise in human slums and cast all their spells in rhyming slang. Oh, Jad the Mad, that's hilarious.
That sounds awesome.
That sounds amazing. So you have this being that is both a being of, I would say, from a good nature, but they're dealing with a patron who's probably on the evil side of things.
Right.
And there's that whole mix there.
And just the rhyming slang bit, okay, again, one of the best ways to make your players love your character is to entertain them with your character.
Yes.
And if you do any kind of like gimmick like that with your spell casting, they will love it.
I mean, as long as you invest energy to make it not repetitive.
Right, exactly.
Yes. But there's a lot of fun things
that is a great place to start. Yeah.
I like also that you went for the three I would say very extreme angles of looking at life. So you have an angel, which is something, you know, from...
You would assume like lawful good kind of thing.
Yeah. But then there are a warlock, which is like... Were they a warlock by choice? I would assume no.
Well, I mean, all warlocks, I think, are warlocks by choice.
But I would say... I would be interested to find out why this character is a warlock.
The reasoning behind that would be a great explanation. What would cause an angel to make a deal with something that's probably not good?
Well, no, I think it's in specifically the raised in human slums thing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Why are they raised in human slums? Why is this being that is, you know, this almost near ascendant one in human slums specifically?
And then what was the specific thing that caused them in the human slums to get to that low point where they then make a pact with some eldritch entity or whatever?
Right. And was that the means by which they were able to leave and then join the party?
Who knows?
Who knows, yeah. Let me see, there's a couple other ones here. Elven bard who is actually tone deaf.
Oh boy.
Okay, that's one that I don't even want to see in my party. But
I've seen comics like that's the Asterix the Gaul, but with the whatever the bard was in that.
Obelix?
No. Obelix was the big one. Getafix is the druid that gives them the potions.
Right.
Cacophonix, that's
Cacophonix, yes, that's right. Oh my gosh.
Yes, the parsley.
I would say just in that one, have it be a thing where you don't act out your tone deafness, that you kind of describe your tone deafness. That would be kind of
maybe
funny.
Occasionally when it's warranted, but they could get old of that, yeah.
For sure. A human commoner with average stats who wants to be remarkable. There you go. You then basically have the story start off with them being a class that is, I would say, as generic as things could get.
Well, no, they were saying commoner as in, like, there are some rules for making just a commoner class.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's not good, but...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty interesting, yeah. Let's say... Here's something a little more basic. Never underestimate playing a human, as you are both aware. That's for sure true. A young human noble runaway, too brave for the confines of the castle home. They're a fighter, or maybe even a barbarian, defending their party at the grittiest of the front lines. Okay, so they came from a cush kind of happy-go-lucky, everything was served to the environment.
They had that thirst for adventure and, you know, being brave and whatnot, so they go out and do all this stuff. And, hey, yeah, that's... Because then... you could have this great sort of fish out of water aspect, but also the contradiction of the fact that they have all these abilities for like killing things and being brutal, yet they're
not used to that.
They're right, or maybe they do it in a way that's very different than you would expect.
Oh,
you know, if they're a barbarian, maybe it's not that they're a barbarian of rage, but actually more like a determinator barbarian, where they're just like, no, I was taught to never give up, you know, or something like that. You know?
For sure, I think one of the other things that could be pretty cool here is you say that this person is too brave for the confines of the castle home, and what I see in there is an element of foolishness.
Sure.
And they go into the world seeing that they're braver than the rest, but it also means in some ways they're dumber than the rest, and they need
someone to help basically keep them from
teach
doing
them the worldly ways.
Stupid, yeah.
Like pair them up with a rogue, pair them up with someone who isn't like a paladin or a cleric, like someone
like just this type of character with a rogue with it. They would get off on the wrong foot so much, because if it's like the traditional chaotic neutral wannabe rogue that's like
a thief,
that's like a thief and all this stuff, doesn't want to cause trouble and whatnot, is not courageous, maybe the rogue would try and take advantage of the noble.
That's the thing that'd be pretty cool. It would be kind of a Reagan mob situation where he would send this brave person to be the distraction, by then which the rogue would then steal all the stuff and be like, all right, good, here's your share.
And that might push the noble person to the point where it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, who knows? That's pretty cool.
Halfling barbarian, I already love it.
Yeah, halfling barbarian who is raised by elves and insists he's just a short elf and gets angry when people who tell him different. Oh, that's great.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Oh,
the denial characters can be pretty fun.
And interestingly enough, in 5th edition D&D, which is another reason why 5th edition is great, and also 5th edition is amazing for starting out. Like, it's very beginner friendly. But
definitely.
But 5th edition, halflings actually make very good barbarians. Because their stats actually line up with it.
They do,
fairly well. So, yeah.
I mean, re-rolling natural ones also is basically like a pseudo-lucky
well, but also
feat,
just the dex and the con.
Oh, sure.
High AC, you know.
Yeah, dex barbarians are a thing, so there you go. Small blonde ninja boy with an affinity for wind chakra wants to be Hokage. Very loud, annoying, and all-around nuisance. Never heard of this character
I'd prefer
before.
like a pink-haired, like, wannabe tsundere that, like, doesn't have any real abilities whatsoever and kind of just gets in the way all the time.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Also, one other thing that can be awesome with D&D is there can be the instinct to want to do the thing that is statistically the best in the game, right?
Right.
And that I totally get that. I can do that too. But don't underestimate doing the things that are just bad, because that's where some of the best stories come from.
It's true.
Like,
it's true.
In Critical Role, Sam Riegel, when he made his character, they didn't know it was going to be for this big show. You know, they were just playing for fun. But he asked Liam, what is the worst combination I could possibly do? And Liam's like, Gnome Bard. He's like, cool, I'm going to be a Gnome Bard. And he has some of the most amazing clutch moves
moments
ever,
in the campaign.
and moments in the campaign. It's absolutely incredible. And, you know, he's one of the ones that is statistically, you know, traditionally one of the worst things you could possibly be.
Right. They have actual, like, Critical Role stats where you can see, like, who was the most helpful in terms of, like, you know, damage and healing and all this other stuff. And, like, you definitely can see who the people, at least that are in the top, you know, of like, specific things.
There's entire compilation videos just along a certain theme of things that Sam Riegel would have his bard Scanlan do that just completely were absolutely incredible and amazing. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. A human wizard that was raised in a guild which sharing was given, and therefore he doesn't get the concept of money. That's really cool.
That would make his life very interesting, considering that wizards need money to acquire new spells for their spellbook.
So let's say this human wizard has this very, very, like, giving attitude and encounters the party, and the party doesn't have a rogue. Let's just put that out there. And this, so there's no one exceptionally greedy in the party and stuff.
And rogues don't have to be greedy, and don't play a greedy rogue, please, because you will probably end up getting your character killed.
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, but let's say that the party ends up having a really good time with this character there because he's sharing very often.
Yeah.
But let's say there's one point where he's all like, oh, I need something from the party back. And at some level, they're like, well, not yet. Like, they start to be like, well, like, they don't immediately reject him because he's been so nice. But it comes to this interesting thing where maybe the wizard realizes, oh, wait. Like, people are kind of just going around by their desires and not actually thinking about the benefit of others. And maybe that starts to make them be a little bit, like, kind of confused with this environment here. And then, you know, the wizard keeps maybe getting knocked out in fights and stuff like that. And they keep having to be healed and stuff. And people start to resent them for being a little bit, you know, squishy and things. And it's like, but we're all sharing here. We're all helping and stuff. There could be some really cool... We don't want to go too deep into the inter-party conflict stuff because you want to separate the person from the character. But
well, that too. But also, like, money and, like, gear and stuff, try and have that not be a point of conflict.
Yeah.
The whole experience will be so much better.
So much better.
Like, so much better.
But that's
don't
that's
steal
a funny
from the party. Don't do any of that stuff.
Nope.
Yeah.
It can lead to some weird things. Wait, an automaton who was once a human and now habitates a mechanical suit with a top hat, who's a random secondary henchman of a circus caravan, and whenever the main presenter can't do the job, he steps up to direct the whole event. While entertaining, he gets too excited and acts as the main source of the show. Okay, this is way too much, but I
say that's
hilarious. Yeah.
Like that, and the thing is because a lot of that stuff wouldn't even necessarily come up in the game very much, but that makes for an excellent backstory and potentially character introduction.
Yeah, totally.
Like, there you go.
The part about an automaton who inhabits the suit, but they were a person. There's so many things about the whole nature of a person there that you can do, but that's hilarious. Yeah. I see a lot of potential there. An orc raised by an old woman in the mountains. After she dies, he has to struggle to blend in society as he's neither a real human nor does he behave like an orc.
Sure.
Yeah, I think half orc stories are some of the easiest to make because it's just the outcast, you know.
Well, right. It's a built-in contradiction.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of fun you can have there.
Or point of conflict at the very least. Yeah.
Man killed his wife, but the guilt of it caused him to forge a new identity where he thinks his wife is missing and he wants to find her. I stole this from a game, although I ain't telling which one, though. I'm not sure if I know what the game is, but I know there's a movie like this as well. There's a movie like this, and I'm not saying what movie it is. If you know what movie I'm talking about, don't say in chat. But one of the really cool things that you can do here, there does not matter what class you are in this storyline.
That's true. Yep.
One of the things I would love to have this be in, though, is specifically the Warlock. So the Warlock makes a deal to have the new identity. The patron interacts with the new identity, but the patron also
holds that
over him, but the player doesn't know anymore.
Sure.
The player could be like, not the player, but the character doesn't know anymore. So it's something where the patron is kind of like flaunting it and getting the Warlock to do things because he's making going after
dynamic.
And it'd be a very fun reveal for your DM to basically have in their playbook to use at any given point.
Well, yeah,
because the DM is essentially the patron.
Well, and if you manage to make that in such a way where you like basically give the DM a blank slate and you say, "Hey, come up with something," then that could be a really good one to do.
Very cool.
And even if not, it's a great reveal for the other characters and players because they're like, "Whoa, what is this?"
Yeah, and you could have the DM decide what your old personality was, even as well.
The best D&D character, Guts. So here's the thing: Guts is an excellent character. He is actually an absolutely crappy D&D character. He's one of the worst D&D characters you could possibly do. Here's why.
Yeah.
He's quiet. He broods.
Yep.
If you do a character like Guts, you can. But what you need to do, in my mind, is you need to coordinate with another person to be the puck.
Yep.
Right?
Basically.
And you basically need to do it as a package deal so that way they can... Because otherwise... your brooding just feels like you're not participating.
Yep.
But if you have another character that is constantly pulling that out of you, then that actually becomes something that's actively present as opposed to just you not talking much.
Totally. Female cleric with the mind of a 10-year-old girl. 10-year-old child that gets herself in very horrible, life-threatening situations, but her luck stat is too high for her to even receive any damage whatsoever. Everything she's brave, but in reality she's a fool. This is interesting. This sounds very similar to a certain character in Konosuba.
Oh, sure. It is hilarious. One of the things, though, that can get tough with D&D character things is you don't want to talk about outcomes for the characters.
Yes.
You want to talk about who they are as a person, because then all the crazy stuff can happen as a result of that.
Right. If you dictate how people should respond to this, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, because even if it's not like player responses, but it's just like dice rolls, that's why one of the things that you can find out very quickly that it's not as fun as it seems is being the character that's hyper competent.
Totally. Because
you will have points where you're not hyper competent, or maybe you have some great ideas and stuff, and it's going to go all great, but then you just roll a lot of nat ones that day, you know.
Okay, there's a lot of them being submitted here, so I'm going to skip ahead a bunch because we're losing. We're not able to keep up with chat here. Yeah.
Tiny tanks are the greatest. Yes.
Yes. Now after the commoner comes the epic character concept. Tiefling paladin who just didn't want to be evil because of all the bullying she was subjected to now wants to discard her demonic heritage through serving a good deity. Oh, that's really cool. I love the idea of the old fiend, that they served or they were connected to or whatever. How is it in Tieflings? It's like their house or something. Well, it's their bloodline.
The idea with Tieflings is that sometime a while ago, the pact was made with Asmodeus, and they were basically humans, and then they because of that they were kind of cursed.
But it's not necessarily Asmodeus.
It's not necessarily Asmodeus.
There's other ones.
Yeah, with the whole Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, they have a whole bunch of other stuff for different devils. But yeah.
So yeah, there's some cool stuff that you could do there with the whole duality of having served two different gods. But yeah. Let's see here. Goblin gunslinger, formerly a state-sponsored pirate who terrorized an underground ocean, yet has no sense of direction. Wait a minute. An underground ocean?
Formerly a state-sponsored pirate, those did exist, who terrorized an underground ocean, no sense of direction. Wow.
There's so much involved
There's so much there. Like, that's giving the DM so much, and yet at the same time I could see them being like, yeah, no, I'm not
designing an underground ocean. I'm sorry. I love the idea of has no sense of direction because I would see it's not that they always had that. They lost that at some point.
Sure. They
were stuck out at sea for too long at one point, and they have lost all sense of direction.
Or maybe they were in some battle and the cannon fire was just so crazy and things like that, and they were disoriented, and then they almost drowned or something like that.
Totally.
And now it's just like they can't manage to work the compasses and things like that or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna scroll down a little bit more. An elven merchant who's a retired crime lord that's trying to quit old habits to better get along with his paladin daughter. That's amazing.
That sounds like an amazing NPC.
Yes.
If you could do that as a PC, I take my hat off to you.
Yeah, the problem with that is that's not a level 1 character.
And you don't always start out at level 1,
true.
Which can totally work. But yeah.
But that's still pretty cool.
Retired crime lord, yeah.
Because having a daughter and having... old habits of being a retired, level, something character.
If you can, avoid the trope, as common and easy to fall into as it is, of my family was all killed.
Yes.
But
I love the idea of having a family.
Emotional anchor.
That's pretty awesome. Multi-class human fighter wizard bard who is actually just 3 halfling triplets in a trench coat stacked on top of each other that take turns being the head. This turned into, instead of we create the D&D character for you, to just let us hear your crazy D&D
that just seems,
ideas.
Yeah, that just seems like 3 actual characters that are all just like, okay, guys, we have a plan. And the DM's just like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. And then it's like, okay, introduce your character. Oh, da-da-da. Wait, where are the other 2? Or like, when are you going to introduce their characters? No.
Oh my gosh. Tiefling bard. In her adolescence, she was a tsundere towards an Aasimar. However, before reading confessions could be had, the Aasimar unexpectedly died. Oh, that's nice and simple. Yeah. I like that. That's really sad. I I like the idea of just someone having loved someone and having something be lost from that, but then they're still going on their next adventure, so it can be them moving on.
Yeah, because at first I thought you might have been saying that it was a tiefling barbarian, which would be a very different response to something like that.
Oh, that's a good point. That just says bar,
but they clarified after with bard.
Oh, bard, gotcha. Okay.
But bard, that's very different. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
An unscrupulous mimic sorcerer that after a failed magic experiment, he became a formless creature and is slowly losing his sense of self.
Oh my.
Oh wow. But
dang.
But like being an actual mimic, like
yeah. That you can get a DM.
If you're DM to approve that, that's awesome.
That would be fantastic.
But I think I really like about this is the idea of someone slowly losing their sense of self being something that should be able to be the case if you had maybe say like the multiple personalities thing, or you just had someone who was subjected to the, like you said, the magical experiment thing, and that could be pretty cool as well.
Here's a great one too that isn't at all referencing anything from Yato King, former human knight who lost his dominant hand. Yeah, because here's the thing: one of the tough parts about making characters in D&D, a lot of the time is that you need to make a level 1 character, assuming you're starting at level 1, or whatever level you're starting at, right? Mm-hmm. But if you have something like this where they lost some aspect of themselves, then everything that they're doing could be trying to reclaim their former glory kind of thing. And yeah, that could totally work. It could be amazing.
Yeah. High elf magician who is addicted to wands. His collection of magic wands grows, and so does his need for bigger transportation capability. Okay, that's
Isn't
funny.
That just every wizard ever?
That is basically every wizard. But what I like about this is they're a high elf. So this person very much thinks they deserve the higher transportation. So you have the party that needs to go through this very thick forest, and the house like, no, stars, can't do it, not today. Like I'm not leaving these wands with just anyone. So the idea of also like potentially having to put the carriage or whatever in a bag of holding.
Well,
if it'll fit.
That's a good point. Yeah, bigger means of transportation. If you don't have transportation magic, then that means
I could see a lot of things where the person's kleptomania has basically come to a thing where the party would need to confront them about it, but also the DM could very casually have moments where the issues of having all this transportation starts to bear on them and the party doesn't help them. So it basically becomes a thing where they have to make sacrifices in exchange for other things. And the thing is... And that's really good to have.
In that type of setting, if you do that, and you're not willing to make the sacrifices, don't expect the other players, to bend over backwards to accommodate you.
Yep, exactly.
So if you're making a D&D character, do your best to make it be a character that will get along well with the party, even if you are wanting there to be certain points of conflict and stuff. Because
make sure to play with that and be a good sport,
right? Because you're playing with everybody.
Yeah, you're intentionally trying to stir up party conflict, which I think is actually a good thing. But it's not something where you should try to be basically a prick or an asshole.
Right. It's when done in the right way with the right people. Because some people just aren't open for that, because that's not the kind of game they want to play, and that's fine.
Half-elf wizard who, because of past trauma, lost the ability to cast high-level spells, yet through a crush in the form of another party member, a sorceress, he slowly regains his ability and overcomes the trauma. Unfortunately, the sorceress was cursed from birth. So here's some things, again, you're going into results, I think, which is a really cool thing to have at the later parts of the story, but in the beginning.
Unless that's just the starting point.
If this is the starting point here, what I think is...
could work.
Yeah, hold on. That thing just disappeared for a second there. What I really like about this is the whole, I lost my ability to cast spells, which doesn't necessarily do anything about my age or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, there's a character that we both know very well that has something similar to this.
Absolutely fantastic. Yep. And it's wonderful. It's very simple, but wonderful. Yeah.
You can have the losing sense of self be achieved by the DM periodically interceding on your character's decisions. Yeah, exactly. Having them roll a die as well. Like every story or really decision in the game entirely can be just solved with a die roll of some kind.
Yeah.
And then the GM or DM just deciding what the the parameters are. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna basically check one more here, and then we're gonna be done with the podcast for the day. We're Dabi Todoroki. They're submitting D&D characters that we can kind of riff off of and give kind of inspiration for. Okay, here's our last one from Ramiz here. Man goes crazy at sea, finds a witch walking on sea with ominous fog in the background. He makes a wish to the witch to live and wakes up at land. Once he awakens, he looks at his reflection and sees his head is a jar and has gills to breathe rather than lungs. If the jar breaks, he dies if there is no water around. He wishes to find that witch again to change back into a human.
That sounds like you're making your life difficult and you're giving the DM a lot of ammunition, which could be amazing.
Which could be amazing.
Which could be absolutely amazing. But
so,
oh boy.
Yeah, I think one of the crazy things about this is that there's no real race restriction here. If anything, it's just something where, will the party be willing to deal with your story? And if that's the case, then that's awesome. I think that one of the things this works really well in is any kind of ocean-type sea-based adventure in general.
Oh, sure, yeah.
If you're never going to see the ocean in the campaign and stuff, it's kind of a problem and stuff. But this is probably one of the coolest things. All these characters, if you talk with your DM or GM about it beforehand and stuff,
anything can
they give it approval, then it's good. Yeah. It's good. All the other characters in the story basically are just going to be like, wow, the DM let you do what?
Yeah, right.
And that's just the group, and that's pretty interesting stuff. But like, you take D&D, you take this whole collaborative story experience, and you think about, okay, what can I take from that individually? There's so much. There's so much specifically with the character creation process, which the actual like, you know, session by session storytelling stuff there. There's so much to be gained from the player and DM experience. Like both of them give very unique perspectives when it comes to storytelling.
Especially with discovery-based storytelling.
Because
it's all about getting to know the characters and playing off each other and things like that and seeing what happens organically.
Yep. Yeah. And it's really fun when it just clicks and it works.
Yep.
So, yeah. Thank you so much for watching, y'all. I highly recommend checking out all the things that we linked in chat with regards to like the, you know, who the F is my D&D character.
Yeah.
Checking out the Darts and Droids dumb little webcomic thing. Checking out Critical Role highlights on YouTube if you want to see if D&D is something you would be interested in. And then just checking out like all the online resources and tools that are now everywhere.
You can find a group so easily.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And we'll see you in the next stuff. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Berserk. Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Divinity Original Sin 2 co-op. Let's play.
Full Murder Hobo.
Yeah. I'm slowly converting Jacob away from that so we can actually like learn the story and stuff. But then also Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for The Witcher 3 Let's Plays, which have been really fun. And then again next week for the podcast.
Yes.
So yeah.
And
Jacob, you got to put something here.
Guys, forgot about this, but so Battle Lines, my sci-fi novel, is available for pre-order still. If you haven't gotten it yet, you should, because it's awesome and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'll link the Kickstarter.
Kickstarter.
In
like if you just search Battle Lines, you'll find it. But here's the link.
I'm gonna post the link. Yep.
Because it's fantastic. We have hit the stretch goals for all of the angels, so now it's on to the other characters. But yeah. So do that because it's really good.
So yeah, and that interests you, we'll see you there. Thanks for being a part of the podcast here. But yeah, until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.